Today, we're welcoming back one of the more memorable guests that I've had on the show. When we spoke 1 year ago, he suspected he was encountering spirits in his home. Not only has activity continued ever since, he has reason to believe today that it may not be quite as simple as ghosts haunting his house. I don't mean to downplay spirits or hauntings in general. I think they're both fascinating. His experiences were definitely unusual in a broader context, but they weren't groundbreaking within the realm of the paranormal. You know, we do have a habit of craving more bizarreness the more stories we hear. That bar that we set is always rising. I think that makes us overlook some pretty profound experiences at times. Because we're always chasing down the craziest stories out there, we can miss a lot of key details or possible connections that could point to a different source. If it walks and talks like a ghost, it must be a ghost, right? Maybe, maybe not. Ever since episode number 1 of The Ether back in 2018, I've speculated quite openly about how different phenomena appear to be related, despite their apparent differences or our struggle to comprehend how or why it could be. For example, why do we so often see high strangeness or paranormal elements associated with Bigfoot sightings? Why do certain locations become paranormal hotspots where anything and everything goes? Why would someone living in a house that's presumably occupied by a ghost also see strange objects in the sky? What could possibly connect these seemingly unrelated phenomena? I would have to doubt that they're all just different versions of the same thing. Too easy. So, does Bigfoot ride around in a UFO then? I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Are spirits really ETs or vice versa? I'm not so sure that's the answer either, but what's the common denominator here? Think about it. Our brains are biological, but they also operate on electrical impulses. The aging theory that the brain creates consciousness is on the way out. It's thought to be more like a receiver that tunes into or picks up consciousness. So that begs the question, where does it come from? What else does that source produce? Hasn't every emotion, touch, smell, sound, sight, and taste experienced by every human that's ever lived been received, filtered, and interpreted by the brain? Of course they have. And no, I don't buy into everyone hallucinating or creating thought forms for that matter. Those things may happen at times, but it's quite a stretch to blanket every unexplained phenomena with them. Does the brain allow these things to be seen, though? Can it facilitate or operate as a gateway to other life forms that exist on an otherwise different frequency, vibration, wavelength, whatever you want to call it? Or is it much more complicated than that? Once again, we turn to the experiencer to help us answer some of these ever-elusive questions. Let's head into the ether. Hey, Johnny, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing just fine, brother. I appreciate you coming back on. Last time we talked, I know it was pre 2020, before all this crazy shit went down. What kind of stuff are you doing to stay grounded through all this? I know you meditate pretty often. Are you still painting?
Um, no, I've kind of taken a step back from that. Life has been really busy. Um, actually, so my company, I work for Boeing, and we shut down in April, and I had actually had a trip planned to go out to Contact in the Desert, and obviously that everything was canceled. Since I got a refund, I decided, you know what, I want to do something fun with that money, and so I ended up getting an electronic drum kit. Um, and just I've been playing guitar for most of my life and always messed around on the drums, but I said I've always wanted an electronic drum set. Finally went for it. I said, we're gonna have a couple weeks off, a few weeks off, and so I did that to kind of keep myself busy at night.
Huh, yeah, that is so cool. I kind of had a feeling based on your Marshall t-shirt in your avatar that you might be a guitar player. So
Oh yeah.
nice to have that confirmation now. And I do play a little myself. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it's great to be in like-minded company.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So let's jump right into this thing here if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. When I had you on in season 2, we talked about you, your wife, even your stepdaughter encountering spirits in your home.
Hmm.
I understand activity has continued, and I wanted to get you back on to talk about that, but also because certain things have happened or come to light that made you sort of question your original perceptions about what you might be dealing with.
Right.
Is it safe to say the lines have become a little more blurry for you than they were 13 months ago?
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Yeah, understandably. Last time we had you on the show, we talked about an experience you had in your home back in December 2017 when you woke up to a strange noise in the living room and then proceeded to feel something scanning your body, what could best be described as like a beam. And after that, everything just snowballed for you. It's like it was some kind of initiation or springboard into everything that followed, your own Pandora's box, I guess. So, what are your thoughts on that experience now that you've had a little more time to reflect on it?
Yeah. At first, I wasn't sure how to take the experience. I mean, when it initially happened, the first thought that came to mind was I felt like I was being scanned by some kind of beam, and the thought of a UFO being over the house or something. After that, I kind of pushed that idea off to the side and just felt like it was too far fetched. I thought maybe a spirit was near me because I've heard other people mention similar sensations. But then after talking, doing more research and learning more, I came back to that idea that, and hearing other people's experiences, experiencing the same thing, and it being related to UFOs. And so that, after talking to Preston Dennett, it really made me look through all those experiences through a different lens.
Yeah, you mentioned Preston Dennett, so let's jump to that. For those of you that don't know, Preston's a well-respected UFO researcher and author. So you contacted him after that, or was there any other experience that kind of prompted you reaching out to him?
Oh, there was, yeah, everything that happened since then.
Okay.
And more so this year.
When did you contact him, by the way?
I got a hold of him March 19th. I sent the first email to him.
Okay. Was he pretty responsive right away, or how did that go?
Yeah, we emailed back and forth a few times. He said, if you'd like to talk on the phone, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. And so we did. We set it up and we talked on the phone, told him a bunch of my experiences. And he said, yeah, I've heard a lot of other people report the same things. And he basically came to the conclusion that you sound like you're a contactee.
Okay. And on that note, you also mentioned to me prior to the show about contacting a MUFON investigator. Was that around the same time then?
That was February 17th of this year.
All right. And they had, that person had similar feedback for you. Is that right?
Yeah. So after I talked to the MUFON investigator, I felt, I wanted a second opinion, almost like you're talking to a doctor.
Right.
And so that's why, and I had heard Preston on podcasts before being interviewed, and he always says, hey, I'm open to, if anybody wants to contact me, I'm open to talking to them. And so that's why I reached out to him. I wanted a second opinion, and he sounded like he was willing to listen. And I really liked listening to his interviews. And so I'm glad I got a hold of him.
Yeah, and speaking of UFOs, I looked at those pictures that you sent me. I'm sure they don't do it justice compared to what your eyes saw that day. They never really do, but from what I could tell, it looked like a pretty bright object in like broad daylight. Where and when did you take those pictures?
So it's funny you say compared to your eyes because I couldn't even see it. I didn't know anything was up there.
Oh, I
So
see.
and I've seen, just through research, other people have said that they were able to summon quote unquote UFOs just by asking for them. So I was out there. This was probably 10:30 in the morning, and took our puppy out for her to do her business, and thought just kind of popped into my head, and I kind of in my head I just said, I'd really like to see a UFO right now, and I just pointed the phone up and just took a handful of pictures, and I think in two or three of them, if you zoom in, you can see something up there that looks like a cigar-shaped object. And there was no, you couldn't hear any airplanes in the area at the time, nothing. And so I was surprised to see something there.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting. I didn't know that's how that scenario played itself out, but also not that surprising because I hear of that element coming up a lot within paranormal or UFO related stories where the human eye doesn't catch something, but a photograph or some other piece of equipment does. But let's change gears here just for a bit and talk about the shadow people.
Sure.
This is something that didn't come up last time we chatted. Can you start with the most recent sighting and then we'll go from there?
Yeah. The most recent sighting was by my wife, and it was weird. It was funny. I was taking a shower in our master bathroom, and my wife was using the other bathroom upstairs, and she smelled my soap like really strong. And while I was in the shower, this was back when I think the lockdowns first started this year, in the Pennsylvania, Jersey area. So maybe like March or so when this happened. And I was kind of in there and just was asking for help from my spirit guides, and just asking while I was taking a shower. I just kind of said, ask them to help me with the stress of the situation, and to look after my kids and our kids in the family. And that's when my wife was in the bathroom, and she smelled like the strong scent of my soap. That's not normal. That never happens. She's never said that before. And so, and the bathroom is 15 feet from the master bathroom, And so she left the bathroom and she walked into the master bedroom. She said she didn't have a reason to walk into the master bedroom. She just did for some reason. And after she opened the door, she looked to the front of the house. And there was a shadow figure, she said, facing towards me, like looking like it was looking towards the bathroom, the shower. And she looked at it and was kind of surprised that it was there, and it just disappeared. And she told me that it looked like me, only more broad, about the same height as me, just more broad. And so it was strange that would happen just at the same time as I'm trying to, talk to my spirit guides. And for some reason, she was guided to walk in the room, I guess. And, it felt like a confirmation of me asking for help, I guess.
Right. And that's pretty intriguing that it actually resembled you. I didn't realize that. Was it a dark figure? I know we're talking shadow people here, but was it dark, or did it have any other color? Was it transparent at all?
So she described it as the same height as me. She could make out the silhouette of a human being or a humanoid. Head, shoulders, and that's how she said it looked. It was broad. It was shaped like me, she said. And she could tell, I guess there was enough definition that she could tell that it was looking towards the bathroom from the other side of the room. So it was well-defined, and she said it was slightly translucent, and then it just poof, disappeared as soon as she saw it.
Huh. And as I'm thinking about it, since it resembled you, one could argue that could have been, like your spirit body or your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and not another entity. But yeah, very interesting. What was your earliest memory of a shadow person encounter or sighting?
Probably a couple years ago. My wife and her kids have seen them more than me. But a couple years ago, I was about a year and a half, maybe a year ago. I was out with the dog. And this was near dusk, and across from the house, almost parallel to where I was standing, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure, a shadow person, standing next to my stepson's car, and it was so quick. Like if you weren't paying attention, you would have thought it was nothing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It just caught my eye, and I went inside and told my wife about it, and she said her son had seen the same thing over there, and she saw the same thing over there. So,
wow.
That was confirmation that, all right, I wasn't imagining this, or just, it wasn't pareidolia.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that your wife had some unusual things going on in that house before you guys even met. Do you know, did she see any shadow beings herself before you guys ever got together?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm sure the answer is yes, but I don't remember her telling me I can't remember any specific stories off the top of my head.
Gotcha.
She did see a ghost in their house, though. I mean, a specific, a woman walking back and forth from the kitchen to the family room. And I saw that once as well. That was the first time I ever really saw a ghost, and that was when we were first dating.
Okay. And on a related note here, what about the orbs that you've seen in your home? You sent me a few photographs of those. About roughly when did you take those pictures?
Probably spring of 2019.
Okay, so not too long ago. Is that something fairly common? Even if you don't photograph them, do you see them pretty frequently around the house?
I wouldn't say frequently. I think I've seen them, but they happen so fast, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen things in the backyard when we're sitting watching TV. I don't know if I have seen them, and it's hard you want to debunk these things, I guess, as soon as you see them.
Mm-hmm. But when you're talking lights, your mind kind of tends to want to explain it away. I definitely get that. Do you get the sense that the UFOs that you photographed were similar in nature at all to the orbs that you've photographed?
Yeah, I never thought about it till you just brought it up right now, but I don't see why not. After talking to Preston and him putting his, a little bit more clarification, I don't see why not,
Yeah. Something else we did not talk about last time, missing time. Is this something you've experienced during a UFO sighting or under other circumstances?
No, not during a UFO sighting.
Okay. When did that happen for you? I guess what's the earliest memory I suppose you could call it, that you have of that?
So I only have two conscious memories of this happening.
Okay.
The first time was with my wife and myself. We were laying on the bed. Well, we had just got done being intimate, and we just laid on the bed, and we woke up, I think, 2 or 3 hours later. It was light out, and then all of a sudden it was dark out, and we both came to at the exact same time. We weren't drinking beforehand. We don't do any drugs or anything like that. And we both came to a couple hours later, and it was like dusk, and we both sat up and looked at each other and said, what just happened? Like, we didn't understand it. We were confused. The first thought that came to mind was, were we just abducted? I didn't say that to her because she wasn't comfortable with that idea back then. It always kind of freaked her out, almost like a PTSD type of thing.
Okay.
So I let it go. I didn't press the issue with her, but that was always in the back of my mind.
And you didn't hear any strange noises or feel any weird vibrations or see any lights or anything like that? You guys just, did what you did. You were laying there and all of a sudden missing time.
Yeah. That it was like that clear cut, that simple. It was just so, it was just weird.
Well, I think it adds some credibility there too, because, your wife had that shared experience with you that she can verify. And again, this is something that comes up a lot of times with these kind of stories, but you mentioned alien dreams. So I definitely want to get some clarification on that. Were these dreams associated with any missing time, or were they separate events?
I don't know, because I was going through my notes for us talking, and I had a second instance of missing time in April. And so as I was going through my notes, I didn't realize how many other strange things happened in April. Dreams, other strange things. So maybe, it could be.
What about the second missing time experience? What happened there?
So this was on April 24th. I ordered food for the family. I ordered food at 6:18, and I had an email receipt. That's how I know what time I ordered the food.
Okay.
So my wife and I were sitting in the kitchen. We're talking for a few minutes, and I'm keeping an eye on the time so I know, what time I have to leave to go grab the food. And I got up to use the bathroom at 6. I planned on leaving to go grab the food at 6:30 because it was going to be ready at 6:48. So I went to use the bathroom after we were talking, and after I came out, it was just, I'm in and out of there, I thought. And I got out of the bathroom and it was 6:38. I know we weren't sitting at the table talking for that long, for a half hour or 20 minutes. I know we weren't sitting there for that long. We only talked for, I thought 5 minutes. And then I was going to use the bathroom, grab my stuff and go grab the food. So, and my wife, when I got up to use the bathroom, she got up to take the dog outside. And she came in about the same time as me. And I said, "Do you see the time?" We were both confused. I think I was more confused than she was because I kept on looking at the clock. So I knew what time, I could leave on time. And it was just confusing,
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Well, so let's go back a little ways here to your childhood. I think if I remember you correctly, the last time we talked, you said you had a pretty normal childhood other than the fact that you were adopted, right?
Yeah, that's right. And before we get into that, I just wanted to add one more thing to that strange missing time.
Yeah, of course.
Because it relates to something else. So my wife and I were talking about an experience that she had when she looked out the backyard and saw something there. Strange, We don't know what it was, assuming it was UFO related. So it was strange that we're talking about that subject, and then all of a sudden, this quote unquote missing time happens.
Definitely.
I don't know. It's just funny how those things relate to each other.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad you threw that part in there because, who knows? Maybe they are connected in some way. Now, back to the childhood memories then. How did those surface for you? Did you get regressed? Did you meditate? How exactly did you recall those?
No, it didn't come through regression. I would like to get regressed, but I haven't yet.
Okay.
And it didn't come through meditating either. I mean, maybe as a result of it, but not directly. It was just, I guess these experiences kind of just knocked those memories loose.
What do you remember from childhood that really sticks out to you?
A few strange dreams, and the most graphic thing that happened when I was a child, probably about 10 or 12 years old, was I'm sitting in my bed reading at night, and I look to my right, and my curtains are partially closed.
Mm-hmm.
And I swore I saw the torso of an alien on the other side of the window. And my house was a 2-story house, and it was slightly green. I could see the roundness of a belly, kind of, and it wasn't real broad. It was pretty narrow.
But you didn't see a face or a hand or anything like that.
No, I didn't see no face, okay. No arms or appendages or anything. I just saw this torso there. And I remember it looked like it was textured, just by the shadow, I guess from the light in my room.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, I was 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old, and I yelled out to my mom, and she came in, and she pulled the curtain back, and there was nothing there. And that's what she said. She's like, "There's nothing there. I think it's time for bed, honey." And that was that. I forgot about it till I was an adult.
Okay. What else do you remember, just, I guess, dreams or otherwise from your childhood?
I had a really vivid dream as a child of looking out my bedroom window at night and looking above the trees and just seeing flying saucers, handful of flying saucers just gliding above the trees, just going by. And I remember that happening a couple times. And it was a really vivid dream. I remember exactly what they looked like. I remember seeing the trees. I remember just being in my bed, wide awake, looking to my right and looking out my window and just seeing them just go by.
Now, people often report, their emotional state in situations like this. Do you recall, were you calm? Were you scared at all? Do you even remember how you felt when you saw those?
I don't remember being scared. I don't remember any dramatic emotions at the time. It just kind of was like, it was just there.
Yeah, that's definitely another common aspect.
Yeah. I mean, I just
Yeah.
remember watching it like you would watch the clouds go by.
How difficult for you is it to entertain the theory, or I guess the possibility, that you're an abductee?
It always felt unreal until I talked to the guy from MUFON and Preston. I just felt like it was something I was making up in my mind, after maybe reading and researching so much.
Yeah.
Now that happens to other people. It wouldn't happen to me. Why would it happen to me? That was kind of my reasoning. And then after talking to the MUFON investigator and then Preston Dennett, and him really outlining the reasons why he thought, or why he came to the conclusion that, yeah, you sound like how did he phrase it? He said something like, you match all the boxes that I usually check off for somebody.
Yeah.
And during that conversation that we had, I accepted it, and we were talking, so I didn't put a ton of thought into it at the time. And then the following day, I had, after I drove into work, I was getting out of my truck, and just the thought of it kind of popped into my head, and I just was kind of flush, and a little panicked at the same time, and I guess the gravity of it hit me all at once, and I guess I felt a little panicky at first for a split second, and then I just kind of accepted it. I mean, so what? Now I know if it's true. It doesn't change anything. It's already happened in the past. Why get upset over it now? And I kind of like the idea. I kind of would like to have more of a relationship in my conscious state, I guess, is what the conclusion came to.
Well, I'd be really interested to know if, you ever get a regression done, and hopefully it's by somebody who knows what they're doing and doesn't plant or force ideas.
Right.
Because unfortunately that does tend to happen. But yeah, I'd be really curious to know what could come to light from a session like that.
Yeah.
Before I forget to ask you, you mentioned the possibility of implants. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. On my lower right side of my lower back on the right side, there's like a weird small pebble feeling thing under my skin. It feels round, and I can move it around. It won't move around my back. It'll just kind of move around as if it's anchored to a certain spot. You can kind of move it around with your finger, but it'll stay there. I don't know. I don't know what it is. My wife said it could be something natural.
Could be.
I don't remember feeling it as a child, but as a young adult, I remember feeling it there. But not really putting a whole lot of thought into it. I don't know why, but I just didn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, it isn't one of those situations where you knew it wasn't there the night before. You had a weird dream and you woke up and there it is. This is something that gradually dawned on you over time.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely something that could have a pretty normal explanation.
Could be.
Right.
Also, there's and I had sent pictures of my back to Preston.
Oh, okay. What did he say about that?
Situation? He said those look like, again, it looks like things that he's seen with other contactees, because to the left of that, towards the center of my back, there's a few dark marks of like scars. Same with towards the top of my back. And those haven't been there. They haven't always been there. In fact, my wife pointed a couple of things out to me. She said, "Why does your back look like that?" One day, and this was earlier this year. And she took pictures, and I had sent those pictures to Preston as well. And he said, "Yeah, those look like things that I've seen before."
Yeah. Okay. And I'm curious, Johnny, outside of the show, you and I have talked a bit about the possibility that these things are connected in some way, and they do seem like it, but do you think that they're separate entities that use the same doorway, so to speak, or more like a single phenomenon that masks itself or alters its appearance to, I guess, suit the situation?
As I said before I talked to Preston, I would have thought these were all different things. After talking to him and also reading a couple of books from Dolores Cannon, I'm thinking they're all related somehow.
Yeah. In talking about, possibly being abducted and the things that you've gone through, I'm sure you've spoken to your wife about it. We've talked, you and I, you talked to Preston, and the other MUFON investigator. Have you reached out to any other friends, any other family at all about the things you've encountered?
No,
No.
no, I haven't reached out to anybody else. Nobody else.
What common response do you think is worse, the disbelief or the ridicule?
I've never been ridiculed, but I have had disbelief.
Yeah.
And that's pretty frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to make something up like this?
Yeah, exactly. It's a good point because I've asked that very same question many, many times. And you know what? There's never really a satisfactory answer for that. I know that some people embellish. I know that some people just make shit up.
Sure.
But I don't believe that's the case for the vast majority of people that come forward with this stuff. The question has to remain. What do you or other people have to gain? What about the psychic abilities that you've been developing and kind of working on? Do you think those came as a direct result from your encounters with these beings, whatever they are?
That's a good question. Because after that scanning incident, I guess you call it, is when I reached out to a psychic, and I had gotten interested in. I mean, I always had an interest in these things, but I just asked her if I was a sensitive or if I was a medium, and I asked her how I could improve those abilities if I was, and so she gave me some advice. So maybe it triggered it.
Yeah, very well could be. Are you still practicing energy work or Reiki? I know you were doing that before.
Not as much.
Yeah.
Since this whole lockdown thing happened, my schedule at home has changed.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really carve out that time to meditate like I was able to before on the reg.
Yeah.
So things kind of things are changing, I guess.
Sure. I get that. Is there anything at all, Johnny, that we haven't touched on yet, experiences or otherwise, that you would like to address here before we call it?
Well, I think after reading Dolores Cannon's books, I think ETs I think they're related to spiritualism.
Okay.
Which is something I had never heard of before. And I think whoever they are, try to communicate with us in ways that we'll understand. So, for example, since I don't even know how long it goes back, probably let's just use the scanning time period as a period of reference. I've been seeing the same numbers on clocks since then, like consistently every day. In fact, while we're talking, I just saw 333 on the computer, and I see that almost every day. I don't usually see 3:35 or any other time, around there. It's usually I'm walking around, I look at the clock, and it's 2:22.
Yeah.
Or it's 12:12, 11:11, 10:10. You know what? So I think that's a way of the other side or whomever just getting our attention for whatever reason.
Definitely. I call that like a little nudge,
Yes.
Because it happens to me pretty often as well. I wouldn't say every single day,
right.
More like certain days where it's really, really prominent. It's usually when I'm working on something, being creative, doing something of value to me. For example, the last episode I did on some near-death experiences there,
right.
It was just back to back to back. Every single time I looked, there it was. And it was happening along with other synchros that were occurring. So yeah, I couldn't ignore that. And I don't feel like I'm more prone than the average person to check the time. I'm not obsessed with looking at the clock or anything. I've thought about that, and it's not that, and nor am I expecting to see those numbers. I'm not consciously thinking about them. I just look and there they are. So to me, it feels like it's some kind of a guiding force. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree 100%. And that episode was amazing. It was beautiful. The couple stories that you related and your conclusion to what they may or may not mean. It was, I completely resonated with it. It was a great episode.
Oh, thank you, man. I really do appreciate that. I have to credit the stories. It gets kind of challenging at times to find one that I really click with. And when I do, then I know there's a good chance that it will for other people. And That episode came together pretty quickly. It was a lot easier than others that I've done for sure. And, maybe I got a little confirmation there along the way that they were the right stories at the right time. But I got to say, man, your story keeps getting more and more intriguing. And I have a feeling we haven't heard the last from you. Have you ever thought about writing a book or creating a blog, something like that to share what you've experienced with other people?
Yeah, I did back in 2017, 2018. I was talking to a friend who's a writer. Unfortunately, she didn't have time to put into it. And my wife would like to put a book together as well. And I did start a blog, but I just haven't kept up with it.
Yeah. Well, definitely something to consider going forward, man. And if you need some help putting that together, I might be able to lend a hand there. I do a little bit of writing on my own. So
that would be amazing.
Yeah, maybe we could work something out there. Because, yeah, I hope as many people listen to this show as possible, but it would be nice to put your story out there in a different medium to kind of ramp up that awareness that much more. But once again, Johnny, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate you coming back on. Can you remind everybody where we can find your artwork online? And in case anybody wants to reach out to you, where can they do that?
Sure. Artofjohnny.com is my website. And Art of Johnny, that's ARTOFJONNY. artofjohnny@gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, you did an amazing job, my friend. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, I know you were a little bit nervous coming back on here a second time to talk about this stuff again, but you did it, and you did even better than last time. I commend you for that.
Thank you.
I think what you're doing matters. Even though we don't definitively know exactly what's behind this stuff, you're talking about it, you're sharing your experiences, and that is what's important, sparking that conversation. And I'd love to have you back on in the future here. Make sure to keep me posted as things progress for you, okay?
You got it.
All right, Johnny. Until next time, take care, sir.
Thanks, Cody, man. You too.
Big thank you to Mr. Johnny Trosi this week. Great to have him back on, and we definitely covered some new territory this time around. It's a perfect example why it's important to keep an open mind about the unknown. Preconceived notions really have no place in unexplained phenomena, and I think Johnny has the right mindset. It's allowed him to consider other possibilities, and that's about all we can do with this stuff. The paranormal is like a giant onion. It's just one layer after another. Some find that frustrating, and we see a lot of people either throw their hands up or simply adopt a narrative. One might think that's easier, but all it really does is just shut your brain off and stifles the research we could otherwise benefit from. Yes, it's difficult to pin down how all the phenomena we talked about today may be connected, assuming they even are, but when multiple people in the same home are experiencing various unusual things, it's hard to imagine that they're not related in some way. Johnny's ongoing story here, it reminds me of a theory I heard recently about something akin to shamanic initiation, that essentially the spirit world is reaching out to us in different ways in order to wake us up to other realities. Because keep in mind, it isn't like Johnny sought these experiences out. He eventually became open to them, but it's not like he's been on some lifelong mission to engage the phenomena. Very few actually are. They seem to find us more than the other way around. And when he mentioned the spirituality connection, that stuck with me because look at the similarities between NDEs and alien abduction stories. Paranormal encounters versus altered states of consciousness. Cryptids versus psi phenomena. If these things are all rooted in the spirit realm, as human beings are thought to be, might that be the connecting link? Are we being called upon or recruited by the spirit world to become enlightened and fulfill a higher purpose? And again, is the human brain the apparatus that allows this? If it's designed to be basically hacked, why doesn't it happen to everyone? Why so few? Is most everyone on the planet really too closed off to accept it? That would be a more frightening thought than anything we've ever talked about on this program. I think that's where I'm going to leave this one today, guys. I could speculate all day long, but that won't bring us any closer to an answer. I think the big takeaway here is that the veil between worlds or realities is thinner for some people. I'd even take a bigger leap and say that those people are fulfilling a purpose by sharing what they've seen. Spreading knowledge and information is a core aspect of all living beings that we do benefit from. I hope that you can share Johnny's story with others, and if you'd like to contact him or check out his artwork, which is amazing by the way, head to artofjohnny.com. Please don't forget to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't yet, it is by far the best way to support this program. It helps more than you know. If you are on Spotify, please follow us there as well. You can find us on Facebook, just look for the Ether podcast page, and on Instagram at ether_show. Thanks again, everyone, for joining me. We'll see you next time in the Ether.